The Cursed King, Odysseus. He survived Troy, then lost himself at sea.
In the vast pantheon of ancient heroes, most are remembered for the way they died in battle, immortalized by their physical strength and tragic ends. Yet the most enduring figure of Greek antiquity is defined not by how he fought, but by how he survived. Stripped of his army, lost at sea, and presumed dead, a king disguised as an aging beggar washed upon the shores of his own kingdom after 20 long years of war and wandering. He was a man forced to rely on his intellect in a world ruled by brute force. Whether he was a flesh and blood king of the late Bronze Age or a composite figure of oral tradition, Odysseus of Ithaca became the foundational archetype of the human survivor.
His legendary journey profoundly shaped Western literature, philosophy, and our very understanding of human resilience, leaving a legacy that has endured for nearly 3,000 years.
Odysseus, known as Ulysses in Roman tradition, is a central figure in ancient Greek mythology and literature, most famous as the protagonist of Homer's epic poem, the Odyssey, and as a key commander in the Iliad. In Greek tradition, he was born on the Ionian island of Ithaca. While it is impossible to confirm his precise birth and death dates, historians and classicists place the mythological events of his life within the context of the late Bronze Age, specifically during the Mycenaean period, which flourished from approximately 1600 to 1100 BCE. Culturally and politically, Odysseus is identified as an Achaean, ancient Greek, chieftain or Wainax, king.
His primary fields of influence bridge military strategy, diplomacy, and literature. He is considered profoundly influential because he represents a revolutionary shift in the ancient heroic ideal, the triumph of Metis, cunning and intelligence, over Bia, brute physical force, making him a symbol of human adaptability. According to classical mythology, Odysseus was born into a world defined by rugged maritime landscapes, palace economies, and warrior codes. He was the son of Laertes, the king of Ithaca, and Anticlea, the daughter of the renowned trickster Autolycus. In some darker, alternative traditions, his true father was whispered to be Sisyphus, the cursed king of Corinth, which contemporaries use to explain his cunning nature. His childhood was deeply rooted in the aristocratic culture of Mycenaean Greece, an era characterized by bronze weaponry, sea raiding, and strict guest-host relations, xenia. The most defining physical event of his youth occurred during a boar hunt on Mount Parnassus with his grandfather's hounds.
A charging boar gored his thigh, leaving a permanent jagged scar. This scar became a crucial marker of his identity, serving as the biological proof of his lineage that would later save his life and secure his kingdom. From a young age, Odysseus exhibited a sharp intellect and a rhetorical brilliance that set him apart from the physically towering warriors of his generation.
The ideological foundation of Odysseus's life was shaped by the harsh geopolitical realities of the ancient Aegean. He was heavily influenced by the cultural demand for kleos, glory, and nostos, homecoming. The most significant mythological influence on his character was his divine patron Athena, the goddess of wisdom, tactical warfare, and statecraft. Her patronage symbolized his own psychological disposition towards strategy rather than impulse. The defining political event of his early adulthood was the gathering of Greek chieftains to vie for the hand of Helen of Sparta. Recognizing the impending disaster of widespread bloodshed among the suitors, Odysseus invented the Oath of Tyndareus. He proposed that all suitors swear a sacred oath to defend the chosen husband against any future slight. In exchange for this diplomatic masterstroke, he was awarded the hand of Penelope, a woman whose intelligence matched his own. This single geopolitical maneuver permanently bound Odysseus to the collective fate of the Achaean kings. Odysseus's transition from a regional island king to an international military figure was reluctant. When the Trojan prince Paris abducted Helen, triggering the Oath of Tyndareus, the Achaean coalition mobilized for war. Unwilling to leave his newborn son, Telemachus, and his wife, Penelope, Odysseus feigned madness to evade the military draft. When the Greek emissaries arrived in Ithaca, they found their king ploughing his fields with an ox and a donkey yoked together, frantically sowing salt into the earth instead of seeds. The emissary Palamedes, suspicious of the act, placed the infant Telemachus directly in the path of the plough. Odysseus immediately swerved to spare his son, exposing his sanity and sealing his fate. Forced to honor his treaty, Odysseus mobilized a fleet of 12 ships from the Ionian Islands. Though his contingent of roughly 600 men was relatively small compared to Agamemnon's massive forces, Odysseus quickly rose to prominence, not as a frontline berserker, but as a master strategist, diplomat, and orator. The breakthrough moment that secured Odysseus's immortal fame occurred in the 10th year of the Trojan War. The conflict had devolved into a grueling, bloody stalemate outside the walls of Troy. The greatest warriors on both sides, Achilles, Hector, and Ajax, were dead. Realizing that the impenetrable walls of Troy could not be breached by conventional military force, Odysseus conceived one of the most famous military deceptions in human history, the Trojan horse. He directed the construction of a massive wooden horse, ostensibly an offering to the goddess Athena, inside which a select group of Greek soldiers hid. The remaining Greek fleet feigned a retreat. The Trojans, believing the war was won, pulled the horse into their city. Under the cover of darkness, Odysseus and his men emerged, opened the gates, and sacked the city. Greek scholars, such as the 3rd century BCE mathematician Eratosthenes, traditionally dated the fall of Troy to the year 1184 BCE. This victory fundamentally changed Odysseus's legacy, proving that intellectual deception could conquer what a decade of brute force could not.
Following the fall of Troy, Odysseus embarked on a perilous journey that would take another 10 years to complete. His post-war achievements and trials are chronicled in the Odyssey. In year 1 of his return, his fleet sacked the city of Ismarus and barely escaped the narcotic grip of the Lotus Eaters. Shortly after, he blinded Polyphemus, a Cyclops and the son of Poseidon, an act that brought a divine curse upon his fleet. Over the next several years, his 12 ships faced systematic destruction. He lost 11 ships to the cannibalistic Laestrygonians and spent 1 year stranded with the sorceress Circe. He became the first mortal to journey to the underworld and return alive to consult the blind prophet Tiresias.
After surviving the hypnotic sirens and navigating the deadly maritime choke point of Scylla and Charybdis, his starving crew committed the ultimate sacrilege by slaughtering the sacred cattle of the sun god Helios. In the resulting shipwreck, his final ship and remaining men were destroyed. Odysseus washed ashore on the island of Ogygia, where he was held captive by the nymph Calypso for 7 long years. Finally released by the intervention of the gods, he washed ashore in Phaeacia, where he recounted his tale. In year 20 of his absence, he was secretly transported back to Ithaca. Finding his palace overrun by 108 arrogant suitors, consuming his estate and threatening his family, Odysseus disguised himself as a beggar. He won a rigged archery contest by shooting an arrow through the rings of 12 axe heads, a feat only he could perform. Alongside his son Telemachus, he executed all 108 suitors, reclaiming his throne and reuniting with Penelope. Odysseus is most famous for serving as the foundational protagonist of Homer's Odyssey, an epic poem composed around the 8th century BCE. The poem, consisting of 24 books and exactly 12,110 lines of dactylic hexameter, codified his reputation across the ancient world. People paid attention to Odysseus because he represented a dramatic departure from the traditional hero, while figures like Achilles represented an unattainable godlike standard of martial perfection. Odysseus was deeply human. He relied on pragmatism, deception, engineering, and speechcraft. His fame spread beyond Greek borders because society recognized its own struggles in his journey. The very concept of his wandering gave birth to a new noun in global languages, an Odyssey,
meaning a long, arduous, and transformative journey. His reputation was continuously built upon by subsequent civilizations, from Roman poets to Renaissance thinkers, who analyzed his survival tactics and leadership. Homer famously introduces Odysseus with the Greek epithet polytropos, meaning the man of many turns or the man of many minds. This encapsulated his entire personality. He was infinitely adaptable, pragmatic, and psychologically resilient. His primary motivation was nostos, homecoming. He valued his mortal life, his family, and his kingdom over the promise of immortal glory or eternal youth, explicitly rejecting Calypso's offer to make him an immortal god. His working style was deliberate and cautious. He routinely suppressed his immediate emotions in favor of long-term strategy. However, he was not without flaws. His defining weakness was his immense pride, hubris. He was also ruthless and morally ambiguous when survival demanded it. His discipline allowed him to endure physical torture and emotional isolation, but his communication style was heavily layered with manipulation, often utilizing false backstories and lies, even when interacting with his allies and family members. Odysseus's life is marked by profound failures and intense criticism. His most catastrophic failure was his inability to save his men. Despite his leadership, 100% of the roughly 600 men who followed him to Troy died before reaching home. His gravest personal mistake occurred when escaping the Cyclops. In a moment of sheer arrogance, he shouted his true name to the blinded giant, an act of pride that allowed Poseidon to target him for divine retribution, resulting in years of suffering. Furthermore, historical and literary critics have fiercely debated his morality. In 5th century BCE Athens, tragic playwrights like Sophocles depicted him in plays such as Philoctetes, 409 BCE, not as a hero, but as a deceitful, sociopathic politician willing to sacrifice basic ethics for state victory.
The Romans heavily criticized Odysseus. Because Rome claimed descent from the defeated Trojans, Roman poets viewed Odysseus with absolute contempt. In Virgil's Aeneid, 19 BCE, he is repeatedly referred to as cruel Ulysses and a fabricator of crimes. In 1320 CE, the Italian poet Dante Alighieri famously placed Odysseus deep within the 8th circle of hell in his Inferno, Canto 26, punishing him as a false counselor who led his men to their doom out of an unnatural thirst for forbidden knowledge. Modern historians frequently point out that his slaughter of the 108 suitors, followed by the execution of the 12 disloyal maidservants, crosses the line from righteous justice into excessive, tyrannical vengeance.
The impact of Odysseus on global culture, literature, and psychology is immeasurable. In literature, he established the archetype of the trickster hero and the wandering traveler, influencing millennia of storytelling. His direct impact is most visibly seen in James Joyce's monumental 1922 modernist novel Ulysses, which transposes the structure of Odysseus's 10-year journey onto exactly one day, June 16, 1904, the life of an ordinary man in Dublin. This book revolutionized 20th century literature. Psychologically, the myth of Odysseus has been used to study trauma, veteran reintegration, and post-traumatic stress disorder, particularly the struggles of soldiers returning from long wars to a society they no longer recognize.
In the 1920s and 1930s, the study of the Homeric texts regarding Odysseus led scholar Milman Parry to formulate the theory of oral formulaic composition, a revolutionary scientific and linguistic discovery that proved how ancient, illiterate societies memorized and transmitted complex histories and poems spanning tens of thousands of lines.
Today, Odysseus is remembered as the ultimate symbol of human endurance and the restless pursuit of knowledge. His image has transformed over time, from a cunning Bronze Age warlord to a deceptive politician in the Roman era, to a romantic explorer in the Victorian era, and finally to a deeply flawed but relatable survivor in modern times. Institutions and academic bodies continue to hunt for the historical truth behind his legend.
In 2010, a team of Greek archaeologists from the University of Ioannina announced the discovery of an 8th century BCE palace structure on the island of Ithaca, which they controversially claimed was the historical palace of Odysseus.
While heavily debated by the broader archaeological community, the excavation highlighted the enduring global desire to bridge the gap between mythological literature and historical reality. Awards for literary journeys, space missions such as the Apollo 13 lunar module, aptly named Odyssey, and modern geopolitical treatises continue to bear his name.
The life and influence of Odysseus represent a profound milestone in human thought. Before him, the heroes of antiquity were celebrated primarily for their divine bloodlines and their capacity to unleash physical devastation. Odysseus shifted the paradigm of power. He proved that a sharp mind is the most formidable weapon a human being can possess. His journey reveals the dual nature of ambition and intelligence. They are tools that can save a kingdom or destroy a fleet. In his endless struggle against angry gods, hostile environments, and his own human flaws, Odysseus remains intensely relevant.
He reminds us that true heroism is not found in the absence of failure, but in the relentless, enduring courage to adapt, survive, and finally find the way home.